Update. Am I the a-hole for not comforting my brother after his wife cheated on him again? Original post. About 9 years ago, my brother's wife left him for another man. She was cheating on him all that time. My brother was devastated. They had married very young. I was always against it. I had my brother in my apartment for months. He had fallen into a severe depression, and I was the one who paid for his psychologist since he didn't had money. I'd even lost his job because he didn't even wanted to move from the couch or bath. I even gave him a bath. I wasn't bothered by that. I did everything for my brother. She just left and blocked him from everywhere. She simply confessed to him that she had been cheating on him for a year and that she was in love with that man. 4 years after that, when my brother was finally starting to feel better, she reappeared in everyone's life. The typical thing happened. She and her lover were no longer together. She had begun to receive psychological help and changed completely. She felt regretful. She was really sorry, etc. I told my brother all the time to cut off contact with her for the sake of his mental health. He didn't. I always had a bad feeling and I could smell the turd from afar. He started to justify her past actions all the time by saying that she changed. They were too young, she was having problems, etc. And he got angry when I told him that she is still a bitch. Shortly after that, they got back together and my brother cut off all contact with me because I didn't accept their relationship and he didn't want anyone to come between them. I told him to F off and we didn't talk anymore. Now, my brother has reappeared at my house after years without him wanting to talk to me, only to tell me that his wife cheated on him again, but this time they have children. In the past, I would have let him in, hugged him and everything, but he has gone years without even inviting me to meet his children. He has not even spoken to me to congratulate me in my marriage or on my pregnancy. I even invited him to my wedding, and he didn't come. I told him that at this moment I can't let him be in my house, which is actually true because I can't have that kind of stress. He told me that we are siblings and he needs me, but I told him that I needed him too. But he was never there, and he cut me off for that woman. We had an argument, and my husband ended up kicking him out because I was already crying. He is staying with our parents now, and my mother just tells me it's not the time to hold a grudge against him, and he needs me. But I can't forget how he didn't think twice before cutting off all contact with me for her. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not a-hole. Your brother is an idiot, and you know as soon as the ex wants back, he will dump you again. Not a-hole. Your brother's being reckless, and he'll likely drop you the moment his ex comes back. You deserve way better. He is able to completely cut off his supportive sister for years without a problem, but is not able to do the same for his cheating wife. That's messed up. Are those kids even his? Not a-hole OP. It's your turn to cut him off, for your and your family's well-being. If he's been raising the kids as his for a couple of years, in many US states he's considered their father and responsible for child support, no matter who the actual sperm belonged to. Dude is a Class A idiot. Yeah, no. He burned a bridge. This is called the consequences of your actions, and he can figure it out. If he wants to consider reparations at some point in the future, I would seriously consider if it's even worth it. He can stay with your parents if they want to enable him. Let the relatives whom he didn't ghost for years be the ones to look after him this time. The ones who've met his children. The ones whose weddings he actually attended, etc. Yes, exactly this. How could you even ask or wonder if you're the a-hole OP? You definitely aren't, and in fact are a wonderful sibling and human. Be happy with your family, and don't get anyone who wasn't in your shoes back then when you were doing all the heavy lifting, guilt you into anything you don't feel comfortable doing. Now for the update. I have spoken to my mother because she kept trying to persuade me to talk to my brother. She came to see me since I cannot move too much. She basically told me that my brother is very sorry, and I told her that then he should tell me that, and not her. My mother replied that my brother is too embarrassed about his actions, but I told her that I am not going to let her be any kind of mediator, and my brother is old enough to speak for himself. I know he was sending her to insist that I talk back to him. My brother is an adult and can speak for himself. That said, 2 days ago my brother came to my house to talk about everything. He told me something that I always knew, which is that he never got over his ex-wife and he was always totally blind for her. He believed that all of us who were against him coming back to her were toxic, and he should cut us out of her life because we were an obstacle that didn't believe people can change. So that's what he did to me, blocked me from his life. He said that he feels ashamed of himself for having been so blind since she cheated on him again. I never told him I told you so, nor am I going to, because he already knows that. There were many people worried about whether their children were his, but I can assure everyone that they are. They look identical to him, and luckily she was maybe faithful at the time. Anyway, after talking, he apologized to me and told me that he needs me. But I told him the same thing as that day. I needed him too, and he was never there. I forgive him for everything, but that doesn't mean that I want to go back to everything being like before, because I don't want to put myself in that situation again. He didn't even tell me what he's going to do with his wife, and I don't want that situation to repeat. I never did anything expecting something in return, but it did hurt me a lot that he turned his back on me without thinking twice. It only came back when things got bad for him. I had invited him to my wedding, maybe foolishly believing that he would come, but he didn't even do that. I even kept a seat for him thinking he was maybe coming late, and I feel really dumb for doing that. I told him I'm sorry, but I want things to continue as before, since I got used to not having him in my life, and I don't trust that he won't use me as a nurse and therapist anymore. At first, he didn't understand it, and said that we are siblings and we should be united, but when I told him that he forgot that for years, he shut up. So that's it. I simply told him that I prefer to continue without contact with him as before, but I have made it clear to my mother that I want to spend these months peacefully. Maybe some will call me cruel and say I should think about my family, but I'm not going to let him treat me like she treated him. You are absolutely not the a-hole. Your brother made his choices and cut you out of his life when you try to warn him. You don't owe him comfort now that his poor decisions have blown up in his face. You're prioritizing your own well-being, and that's perfectly okay. The fact that he's still going on about how siblings need to be united even after OP explained how hurtful everything he did was, shows he hasn't learned anything and still puts his own feelings over anything else. He expects OP to reconcile on his timeline because it's what he feels he deserves. If I were OP, I'd tell him he needs to work on empathy / not being so self-absorbed before I let him back into my life. You don't understand. Siblings need to be united when he is desperate and lonely and in crisis. That's what siblings are for, to support him in his time of need. Naturally not the a-hole. Your well-being should never be sidelined for the sake of someone else's mistakes, especially when they've willingly distanced themselves in the past. Reconciliation isn't an obligation. It's a choice, one that requires mutual respect and understanding, which doesn't seem to have been reciprocated by your brother. It's commendable that, despite the pressure, you firmly held onto your principles and protected your space. Wishing you the best with your expecting bundle of joy. And remember, maintaining healthy boundaries is not only a right, but also a testament to your self-respect. Thanks. I'm proud of you even though I don't know you. It requires courage and temperance to make a decision like that. I wish you the best. Next story. Am I the a-hole for sleeping with different women when we were separated with my wife? We were married to each other with my 32 male wife, 32 female for 5 years. However, she told me she fell out of love with me and looking for something different last year. Even though I tried to convince her to stay, she decided to move forward, and we were separated for a little over a year. I couldn't move on first, but accepted that's what she wanted after several months. However, one side of me always hoped for her to come back, which she did 3 weeks ago. She told me she wanted to try things out again, which I was content to. We started seeing a couples counselor the next week with the intent of aligning our feelings and thoughts before moving in together again. One of the questions that was asked was if I've been in another relationship during that time or any other women. Counselor told us honesty is the way to go here, so I came clean. I actually had a go-to club, get drunk, sleep around phase for a few months, and slept with 13 women in total. I knew she was dating around and was honest with going on dates with 3 different men. However, when I told my part, she got extremely frustrated. Now she thinks we cannot get back together, but I told her we were separated and in the divorce process back then. I think it's impossible to get back together now that I talked about my dating life during our separation. But I wonder if I was an a-hole for sleeping around when we were separated. Now for the top comments. Your wife expecting to be able to look for another man and you waiting until she decides she cannot find a better one. You slept with 13 women. I only slept with one man. The one I left you for. The other dude was lying about his serious relationship and only wanted to bed her. She messed up. How do you spell placeholder? You weren't the a-hole. Your wife wanted to separate, but she didn't want you to sleep with any other woman. Now that she realizes you didn't spend the time just waiting for her, she probably understands she isn't irreplaceable as she thought. To be honest, I doubt that this relationship can be saved, but it's all due to your wife and not your fault. This was my dad with my mom. Found a new chick. We found out about it, so divorce happens. He moves in with her and ends up in a 3 long-ish relationships before he finds out my mom is dating. Once that happens, he decides to apologize for his actions and begs her to take him back. All because he thought he was losing his backup hookup. They get married again and the whole cycle is restarted. The OP's wife's relationship didn't go where she wanted it to go. Ran out of people to move off to and thought she had her backup locked up. Now she is worried that you are the one that will have the wandering eye. Next story. Am I the a-hole for hooking up with a married woman and causing her divorce? I, 21 male, have been hooking up with a woman, 32 female, for about 6 months. It started as something casual. We met through a mutual friend at a party, hit it off, and things escalated from there. I knew she was married, but she told me that she was in an unhappy marriage and was planning to leave her husband. She made it sound like the divorce was already a done deal, so I didn't feel too guilty about it. We continued seeing each other, mostly late at night or during the time she said her husband was out of town. I'll admit, it was exciting at first. I was young, she was older, and it felt like something out of a movie. But things started getting serious when she began texting me constantly and wanting to spend more time together. She would vent about how terrible her husband was and how she couldn't wait to be free from him. A few weeks ago, her husband found out about us. He was devastated and immediately filed for divorce. She called me in tears, blaming me for everything. She said that if it weren't for me, her husband wouldn't have left her, and that now she has nowhere to go and nothing to her name. She even suggested that I should take responsibility and help her out since I ruined her life. She has 2 kids, a 10-year-old son and a 7-year-old daughter. She claims that her husband is going to fight for full custody and that it's all my fault that her kids might end up living with him instead of her. She says that because of me, her life is falling apart and her children might grow up without their mother around. I feel bad about the situation, but I also think it's unfair for her to put all the blame on me. I never forced her to cheat, and I wasn't the one who filed for divorce. I'm also not in a position to support her financially or emotionally. I'm still trying to figure out my own life. So, am I the a-hole for hooking up with a married woman and causing her divorce, knowing she has kids? Everyone sucks here. You are an a-hole. You knew she was married and you knew it was wrong. She is a much bigger a-hole. She is the one violating her marriage vows. You didn't cause her divorce, she did. Let's be honest, if it hadn't been you, it would have been someone else. You are under no obligation to help her out, but you should reconsider your life choices. Exactly, they're both crappy people. Both terrible people, but let's be real here. The cheater is twice as horrible as the affair partner. Gonna probably take some flack for this, but with the age gap, I'd say the married person is way more than twice as much. 30-something me has tricks 20-year-old me would never see coming. I wouldn't stand a chance if I decided to seduce myself. Lol, this lady has more red flags than Nazi German. I would block her and start looking into restraining orders before she ruins your life too. Her gaslighting attempt is even more horrendous than the entirety of the saga. She deserves nothing from OP. Nothing. To be honest, OP's a turd bag too. Dude knew about her marriage and children and still pursued it. Now he's on here whining because he's catching the blowback. He's young, but you gotta know better than to fool around with relationships. Hopefully he learns from this. He was wrong, but the buck stops with her. Don't burn your own home down and then blame the person who sold you the matches. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my now ex-girlfriend that her manic episode was no excuse for her cheating? I, 25 male, dated my now ex-girlfriend, 25 female, for 2 years. For the most part, things were going great. Although there were issues with her sometimes, usually with fits of anger, it wasn't too bad. Well, all that came crashing down when my girlfriend had what was a manic episode. After drinking copious amounts of alcohol on a night out, she had a severe manic episode where she spent $10,000, cheated on me by sleeping with a random stranger and then sending incomprehensible audio messages to me. She was checked into a mental health facility after that episode, diagnosed with BPD. She had long suspected she maybe had this, but it had never manifested so intensely. The psychiatrist said she had undergone psychosis, severe mania, and had BPD. Since then, she was placed on meds and undergoes talking therapy. Shortly after, she confessed to me she had cheated and was extremely remorseful, saying she'd never do anything like that. I was shocked by her admission and had to hide my tears. I basically stormed out and went to a hotel by myself for a few days. I then plucked up the courage to confront her. She tried telling me she loves me and that she has a lot of regret for what she did, and that she feels immense shame and that it's because of her sickness. I told her that her mental health issues are not an excuse, that it has nothing to do with that, and that she cheated because that's just who she is. I then told her we are done. She began sobbing uncontrollably, saying she wants to end her life. That really hurt me, but I stood firm. I told her that her cheating is her own fault, and it's a reflection of who she is, and that she needs to stop hiding behind her mental issues. Her friends have been messaging me, calling me a-hole and heartless, but I feel they are the ones being heartless. Am I the a-hole? While it's essential to be compassionate towards those with mental health issues, personal boundaries and self-respect are also crucial for your own well-being. It's unfair to demand that someone overlooks infidelity under the guise of it being caused by a manic episode. Mental illness isn't an excuse for hurting others, not the a-hole for breaking up in response to a breach of trust. But some sensitivity could be shown when considering her mental state. Regardless, you're not obligated to stay in a relationship that jeopardizes your peace of mind. Except this time, her illness literally caused her to lose control over her behavior. It's like you blamed someone with pneumonia for coughing. If she had committed a crime during this episode, it would most likely have attenuated circumstances, precisely because she didn't have her full mental capacities at the moment. Opie doesn't have to stay with her after this, obviously. Severe mental health issues aren't easy to handle in a relationship. But that should be the reason for the breakup, not what she did when she literally had no control over things. I live with BPD. Manic phases impact emotional control and inhibitions. They do not impact cognitive function. She knew what she was doing. Saying that people with BPD have no control over their actions hurts people with BPD because it perpetuates the myth that they are unable to control themselves.